Ho, ho. We demand to be paid much more.
Today we're talking about the largest strike in United States history. And it was with Kaiser, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the largest healthcare system in the United States as well. So this is a big deal. 75,000 employees were on strike for 3 days. We're going to talk about unions today and this whole Kaiser debacle. Welcome back. Nice Famous Bro podcast. I feel like rapping every time we start.
I know, it's such a good intro song.
Hey, hey. Ho, ho.
Alexander's rapping has got to go.
Thank you, Lexa, for being here. I appreciate you.
Hello.
Yeah.
As usual.
So it's a historic strike. Before I go into the story, look what we have here. This here is a, what do you call these? Duffel bags? No.
Canvas tote.
A canvas tote.
Mm-hmm.
And we have these for sale on the website on nicefamesbro.com. Go support. Look what it says here. You've never had to put a Foley in and it shows. This is one of my favorites. It's fantastic. Put all your nurse gear, all your doctor gear, all your whatever you are.
Whatever you are, gear.
Put it in here.
Respiratory gear.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the respiratory therapist carrying that around? That's funny.
Yeah. Here's another one. Look at this one. This one is black and it has the word anesthesia as if it's like supreme.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Because it's above everybody else. Like, yeah, I can imagine all my CRNAs walking around with this, like, yeah, I'm an anesthesia.
I'm a CRNA.
Yeah, I'm a CRNA. Yeah. So get yourself this, cop it at the merch store online, and give it as a gift or buy it for yourself. Some great stuff. Today we're talking about this historic strike. 75,000 people on strike, healthcare workers, and this was across, like we said, the different states. It's people like vocational nurses, home health aides, ultrasound sonographers.
What?
I don't know why I'm laughing at this. Optometrists. This is a serious thing. Stop.
Basement employees, rise up.
Optometrists. Hey, my brother was out there. As well as technicians in radiology, x-ray, surgical, pharmacy, and emergency departments. All these people were out there on strike. And what were they demanding for? What do you think it was?
Higher pay.
It was higher pay.
It's always higher pay.
It was higher pay, and it was because there's a struggle with staffing.
Oh, yeah.
So
higher pay and staffing is the two biggest things that we hear from healthcare facilities.
And Kaiser actually gave them... They agreed to, give them certain things. It wasn't exactly what they were asking for.
Oh, okay.
But after a while, they had done this strike for 3 days, and they were threatening. This was in October. Okay. So this happened like early October. I can't remember the exact dates. But they were threatening to do it again in early November. Kaiser, I'm sure, was like, whoa, yeah, we can't have this happen again. And I think that they had to hire, like, outsource staff, contract staffing to cover those 3 days because so many people were out picketing and all that stuff.
Yeah. Do they tell them, hey, by the way, we're going to do a strike?
They let them know.
Well, that's good. Because then it's like, hey, we actually want the patients to be taken care of, but we want to make a point that we need better wages, better staffing. Because it's interesting to me, in my mind, when I hear that there's a strike, I think it's like the spur of the moment thing. Like, let's go, everybody with their pitchforks.
No, it's
everybody
planned.
out.
It's a very planned thing. Yeah. They know, the hospital's aware that it's going to be these 3 days and that kind of thing.
That's good.
And they were announcing that they were going to do it in November, early November.
Mm-hmm.
So here's an LPN nurse. Also, this is an LPN nurse. We're about to share a video that is sharing why she is out there on the strike.
The Kaiser Permanente healthcare workers are on day 2 of their 3-day strike. More than 75,000 workers across California, Colorado, and Oregon are calling for better pay and increased staffing. Aldina Hodzik joins me now. She's a licensed practical nurse at Kaiser Mount Talbot Urgent Care.
Thank
you so much for joining us.
The nervous laugh.
Just give us some understanding of what you're seeing in your day-to-day life that is making you strike.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me. It's been rough the last couple of months. I feel like, we get to work. It starts off very busy. We end very busy. Oftentimes we don't get off work on time. It's hard to get any kind of specialty care appointments, not just for patients, but for employees as well. And it's just time that something's done about that.
Someone's going to hate on me for this, but
Sure.
Unfiltered conversation, I'm going to say.
What are your thoughts? First reaction.
Just initially, it's just like, oh, why are you on strike? We're really busy.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. I want to speak to all the nurses. I'm not trying to make light of this situation. I think that there's a lot of credibility to the fact that, hey, we're not being treated fairly here. But we've got to do better about explaining why. Just to be like, oh, why are you on strike? We're just really busy, and sometimes we get out of work late. That's
the majority of everybody in a working profession.
Yeah. Is it just me?
Well, it's okay.
The way you're saying it, I'm not saying that that's the reality of your experience. I believe her and the rest of the people that, that it is tight and staffing is terrible, because it's true. Staffing is terrible in many places. Yeah. And probably most places.
But from that clip alone, I'm not convinced.
Yeah, from that clip
how
alone,
bad it
not
is.
convinced.
Like, I need you to tell me what is happening.
I don't want to be a hater, and I hope that anyone is not getting that vibe. I'm just saying we got to do better in explaining why we're doing what we're doing, because going on strike is a serious deal.
It's a serious deal, yeah.
And you're putting your organization in a very tight spot.
Well, and you're putting your job at risk. You're putting
your patients in a very tight spot, okay?
Mm-hmm. This is to improve staffing shortages. Help us understand what that means and how that's changed after the really tough period of the COVID pandemic.
We've been here, through the thick and thin of all the COVID restrictions and everything that we've had. I feel like, the shorting in the staffing shortage is due to just the lack of pay that they offer us. It's really hard to compete with the travel agencies and the rehabs around here. They pay significantly more than what Kaiser does. And I know that they offer, this great healthcare, insurance, benefits, all of the above, but that's not what gets the bills paid. And if the lack of pay could be improved, I feel like that would help bring in more nurses, more MAs, more everyone.
When you say travel agencies, are you talking about travel nurses?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So how then is the strike, do you think, affecting patients at this moment?
Their appointments are getting canceled. They're not able to come in to get seen for all the important things that they need as well. But
presumably when the strike gets done in the next couple of days, or at least this period of the strike, things will get back on track? Or do you think that'll be particularly difficult?
I imagine it'll be pretty difficult to try to catch up with everything that's been missed in the last several days. Because it's not just our location, it's all the other locations that have had to cancel all primary care, all specialty care, all sorts of appointments, the wait at urgent care, at the ED, everything's just much, much worse than it's been.
What's your feeling about Kaiser's relationship with its workers? I mean, has it changed over time since you've been there?
I've always, it's always been told that Kaiser has a great relationship with its employees. The whole golden handcuffs that they bring up. But after everything that's been going on, we're kind of showing that that's not so much the case, that it's more numbers and less employees that they care about.
And do you think 3 days of striking is going to be enough for the union to get what it wants? And what happens if it doesn't?
We're hoping so. We're hoping that it's enough. But if not, we'll go back into meetings and all that, and then we'll go from there. We'll see what happens. And I feel like us as employees would be happy to come back out here and have our voices heard again.
That's hard to watch, but it's I also have to understand that she's not
social media trained.
Yeah, she's not
obviously.
She's not a news anchor who has everything put together and stuff. Right. And when you're being asked these important questions, on the fly, you're doing your best and that kind of stuff. So I want to have some empathy for the way that she answered. I don't think I'm not expecting someone to go out there and express themselves the way that a PR person is supposed to represent the organization, right? I'm not saying that.
They ask how many patients, or how are the patients inconvenienced by the strike? And she's like, yeah, it's pretty bad. And it's almost like she's saying the strike is harming. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But,
well, it is. It is.
Right. But there is no point to what's in defense of that. Like, she doesn't talk about how it's like we have to do this because we have to accomplish, making our point or making our voices heard, Like, if I'm going to hear about the ways that a strike is causing issues for people who are needing to receive care, then I want to hear why it's necessary to do so, in defense of the strike.
Yeah.
They didn't do that in this interview.
It's uniquely difficult for healthcare people to strike because we're supposed to be there for the patients, right? And so for us to strike, it causes us to look really, really bad on the fact that we're neglecting care for patients, right? It's like, hey, ho, I'm neglecting patient care. It's like you're harming patients for what? Your own agenda?
For your own pay increase.
And so it's uniquely more difficult because if you're working at GM or you're working at any other industry, it's like, I don't care if you sell this many stuff Amazon, you should pay us for getting, you know what I mean? So it makes it incredibly difficult. And that's where I think maybe businesses and organizations could take advantage of workers because they're not going to do anything. They would never neglect their patients, right? They would never walk out and picket.
Oh, yeah.
And so I can understand that in any way that you frame it, it's going to look terrible, right? But I do think that maybe thinking twice about how you frame it, how you say it, can really help your cause. Because at the end of the day, they're striking for their patients.
Right.
That's the way you have to pitch it in any way.
But that's not how it comes across, I would say.
No, it doesn't come across, especially
in certain like interviews and certain news articles. It doesn't come across as we're doing this for everyone's good. Maybe it's because of the stuff that I see.
This is what Kaiser employees were demanding this time around, that the minimum wage would be raised to $25, that there would be a 7% annual raise for 2 years, 10,000 new coworkers, retiree medical plans, protections against subcontracting and outsourcing. I'm not gonna lie. I think that some of this stuff, absolutely, I think an organization should do. I think an organization needs to honor the people who have been there for a long time. Like, what is it called? Promote from within is a culture that you need to do. So you've got to be really backing your people who are loyal to you, who are your employees, your W-2 peeps, are much more important than people you bring in from some random place. I remember during the pandemic, we brought at our hospital, we brought people from Florida. Nothing against Floridians, but people who worked differently. They had their own understanding of certain things, and they were getting paid an amazing amount of money. Work schedule, yes, they were more demanded. Like, it was more demanding for their work schedule. Right. But why weren't we offered, to work that schedule and be paid that much?
My experience in that time was that our hospital eventually did start offering to pay its own employees more, to almost like contracting its own employees to work more.
That's the way it should be, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad that not everywhere did that. Not every location or every hospital did that.
Yeah.
But I agree. That's the way it should have been in order for the needs to be covered, for the staffing needs to be covered. Because you don't know. There are people who are within your own employee pool that would be willing. They would be willing to work 2 extra days a week, 5 days a week, in order to make this huge bonus.
Right.
But they're already trained. They already know the way the system works.
It would be better at the end of the day.
Right. But it was easier.
The hospital we were working at, they did that. They offered out some contracts and stuff. It just wasn't as glorified and as beautiful as these contracted ones.
Sure.
But the other thing you have to realize is they're leaving their homes.
Yeah.
They're sacrificing to travel and live in a freaking hotel.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not going to get into it, but
it was just the
travel
situation.
and contracted nurses and workers do have to go through an extra amount of pain and learning curve, and they should be paid accordingly to that. Than the people. Anyway, moving forward, they ended up getting a tentative deal, and again, I say tentative. I don't even know what the the criteria is for moving forward or not, but it is tentative. Right. That's what I heard and read online. But they agreed to a 21% increase in wages over 4 years for existing workers. That's a significant amount.
Yeah, that's more than what we get for our raises and usual, usual healthcare, like your annual evaluation. Yeah. Usually it's like 1 to 3% raise.
Right. So a 21% increase in wages over 4 years for existing workers. Yep. And then there's a minimum hourly wage of $25 for California workers and $23 for employees elsewhere. We're not talking, this is hilarious when I read this because we're in Texas, okay?
Yeah,
I know that with inflation in the past years, and it's gotten more and more. But when I graduated, the first
that's what I thought too.
Yeah, the first job that I got that they offered. I didn't accept it, but they offered me a job for $22 an hour.
As a nurse, as a bachelor's degree prepared registered nurse.
Yeah. It's just 22? Amazing. It was 22. And it's just amazing that like the
inflation.
This $25 is not for nurses in California. This is for your techs, for your housekeepers, for your et cetera.
That's so crazy to me.
And that's amazing to me. But of course, with inflation and cost of living over there versus in Texas is a big difference. But it's
California curse.
Yeah.
The article from USA Today talks about the strike and how it affected patients. It says, the strike disrupted routine operations, and Kaiser warned some non-emergency and elective services would be rescheduled. Kaiser brought in contract workers to fill shifts to compensate for a wide variety of workers to fill shifts.
Later on in that article, it says that, okay, so the Kaiser strike is settled. What's next? It says here, in addition to pay raises and higher hourly minimums, which we talked about, Kaiser workers will be eligible for annual bonuses that will be partially linked to health of patients. This is very interesting. Okay? This paragraph. It says that the annual bonuses will be partially linked to health of patients. Among other criteria, the amount of employees can earn in bonuses will depend on 2 clinical outcomes. So it depends on reducing blood pressure among patients and maximizing preventative vaccines, such as annual flu shots for millions of Kaiser patients. In other words, if you want to get paid more, you have to keep blood pressure low and give out more vaccines. Mm-hmm. Do you see that right there? When you are part of a union, you don't get to decide what your union represents you as. They just represent you based on the entirety of all of the workers. You know what I mean? Even though Kaiser would raise wages for existing workers and new hires under the New Deal, Kaiser officials said they will seek to shield employers and other customers from rising health costs.
I don't know how they're going to do that.
I don't know, yeah. So that's basically saying, you know how people will say if you raise the pay of the employees, that they're going to raise the pay of healthcare costs?
Well, because the money needs to come from somewhere. I think what people do not get about healthcare,
yes.
Like I feel like I'm sounding aggressive,
but
people do not understand that things cost things.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
High quality healthcare, supplies, surgeries, all of the above. Anything that goes on in healthcare has a price, a dollar sign next to it. And we can't just pull money out of thin air to pay people. So the money has to come from somewhere. And where does it fall to? Most cases, the consumer, the patient, because they're the ones who pay the hospital in order for services to come to them. So that's why I think that's the problem that I feel like is very difficult to solve in these scenarios is, yes, I'm all for the people who work hard to be compensated adequately for their hard work. But at the same time, I think we don't get to see the behind the scenes of these high up people, like the people who are working the numbers in these hospital systems, how they are probably like pulling out their hair trying to figure out where this money comes from. Yes, it could come from the CEO's salary or whatever other source we popularly discuss in these types of conversations, but 21% raise for the thousands, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands. I don't know how many employees are asking for the raises. where does that money come from?
Yeah, it's going to come from somewhere. And that's the thing that I don't think people understand is
it's hard.
The hospital executives, and I'm not trying to take the side of any of them here, but the hospital, they're not stupid. They're not stupid. They're not going to do something where the business is going to go south.
Yeah.
In their profits. They're going to find it from freaking somewhere. And it's going to be at the cost of the very people you're trying to protect. Yes. The consumer, the customer, the employees. In some way, they're going to get it. And that's what I don't think we think twice about. We just, we want more money. We want more money. Okay, sure. But then at what cost? You either love unions or you hate unions. And typically, I'm going to make a statement that's going to piss people off. Typically, unions are welcomed in sort of these more progressive and liberal states. Mm-hmm. And in these liberal states, you don't have that. Like in Texas.
Or more conservative,
Texas, we don't got unions.
Yeah.
Right? But that's why you have a bunch of healthcare workers. I talked to a bunch of healthcare workers and nurses that say that the best place to practice is in California because they have these things set in place where you have to take a certain amount of time break. You can't take more than a certain amount of patients. Yeah. And am I anti those things? No, I think that's actually very great. It's very good. I wish it didn't require a freaking union for people to understand that this is a better working condition. And in the end, it's not just for me, it's for the patient's safety.
Right.
I wish it would come from the organization, and those are the good things that come out of unions because they'll say, no, I'm going to put your feet to the fire. If you say you're here for the patients, then freaking let's do it. The unfortunate thing, in my opinion, is that then they overstep unions, much like the teachers' unions, who I think often overstep. But I think that when you have unions, there are things that people don't think about. People just think, it's positive, it's positive.
Yeah.
The more numbers we have, the more power we have against our organizations who is trying to attack us and take advantage of us. They tend to overstep in certain areas.
Tell me, what do you mean by overstep?
So they overstep, unions overstep. And what I mean by that is that in these unions, it doesn't matter whether you are a better nurse than Sally. Okay?
Yes, Sally, take that.
Sally is a trash nurse, okay? Well, both of you guys are the same in the view of the hospital because you are represented by an organization. And the organization, you are represented by a union. And the union gets to decide what kind of work and how you do it and when you do it and all this stuff. Instead of you talking directly to the organization, directly to the business that you're working for. And that's where I think it can set you up for a poor relationship with the business.
Yeah.
There's a video of a guy who explains some of the bad things about being part of a union.
Now, let me tell you something, folks. I don't know what you know about unions. I'm going to tell you all I know more about it than the average bear because I used to be in politics. It's not easy to unionize 8,000 employees. That's harder to do than it is to get a consensus vote at a Baptist church business meeting. And that's the all-time worst thing you've ever seen in your life. And you Baptists, relax if you got your feelings hurt. I'm a Baptist preacher's kid, so shut up. I can make fun of my own.
It's Ken Coleman, I think is his name.
Everybody tends to think if you're not educated on what unions are, that, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, folks, I tell you every day that I'm a man of the people, and I am a man of the people.
This guy.
But unions are bad for the people. Why? Well, number one, unions don't organize and represent you, the people, for free. It actually costs you money. Union dues. Go do your homework on the Google, all right, about all the bad stories and awful ways that union leaders take those dudes of hardworking American women and men and abuse them. Don't use them properly. Number two, unions create an unnecessary adversarial tension between the employees and the company leaders.
That is
just
true.
By having a union. It already says from day one.
It's us against them.
It's us versus you.
Yep.
Number 3, unions' decisions don't always represent the people in the unions. They don't always advance the wishes of the employees.
Yeah.
Number 4, unions by nature discourage individuality and personal growth. Because it's not like, hey, I can win in this company and climb the ladder. No, you can only do what the union says you can do.
Yeah.
Oh, Ken, you're starting to make a good point. I know. Strip politics out of it for a second, if you dare. You ready for this? Because unions create higher costs for companies and drive prices for consumers up. Hey, unions aren't unions. It's a political organization that doesn't help anybody.
I don't know if I agree 100% in all cases, right? Because he's being very, very general.
Very general.
And he's a guy, I think that he works with Dave Ramsey, if you know him or not. He's in,
I didn't know that.
finance stuff. But he has a very strong opinion on unions. Now, going back to the Kaiser thing to close, I am happy that the workers feel like they have gained ground for because California is expensive. I don't care what anybody says. California is expensive.
Yes.
Maybe it's their policy, maybe it's their political, I don't know what it is, but everything in California is expensive.
Costs. Oh yeah.
And inflation is incredible. So I understand when a Californian says, I cannot pay for this. The rest of the country doesn't understand that. And they do need to get paid. Don't sit there and listen to what I said earlier and feel like I am anti what happened here. I'm not. I'm happy. I'm just weary of at what cost did we do all this and make a ruckus and all that.
Yeah.
At what cost? There will be repercussions, and I don't know what those are.
Yeah. We will probably hear about rising healthcare costs in California in the next few years, if not in the next few months.
Yeah.
But, if their raises are going to happen over the next, I think they said 4 years, I'm interested to see how the people in that area who are patients will retaliate to rising costs, because inevitably it will happen. The money's got to come from somewhere. I really don't think that they're going to take it from the CEO or from random. I don't think they're going to do that.
No.
So, naturally, where does that burden of cost fall to? We will probably hear about it in the next couple of years.
The people are going to have to pay for it. Thank you guys for joining us. I hope that you were entertained and also informed a little bit of this story. This is something that was big, and I'm sure you've heard of it or you had heard of it, but it was great to kind of hash it out and have some unfiltered conversation on this. Our goal is to be able to talk about the biggest things in healthcare in a very unfiltered way and approach it with a mindset of principles that are God, wellness, and purpose, right? And encouraging you to rise above in your personal circumstances, personal development. Healthcare at large can be broken, but that does not mean you have to be. So if you're caught in sort of this crazy mess similar to what Kaiser Permanente and its workers were in, just remember that you can rise above from that and you can learn lessons from the difficult circumstances to apply in your personal life, right? Because no one has more control over that than you yourself. So if you have anything you want to comment and say below, opinion on this story, we thank you guys for joining us. Remember to be a positive force and influence in healthcare and in society. Que Dios me los bendiga. Oh, Alexander.
You talk to me all the time.
Oh, Alexander. Oh.
He's not talking to me in a conversation. Can you imagine? Excuse me. I had to yawn.
Hey. Ho, ho. What do you want to say? I want to start out like that, though.
Patient.
2, 4, 6, 8.
The breathing.
When I would listen to podcasts before I became a podcaster myself, I didn't realize how much leaving a 5-star review helped. And so now on this side, I just want you to know that it really does mean a whole lot when people review and share the content. So if you enjoyed it, please share it with somebody and leave a 5-star review on whichever platform you use, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And if you're interested, you can also find us on social media at Nice Veins Bro, or shop online at niceveinsbro.com. My personal stuff you can find under Nene Pablo, which is spelled NENEPABLO. I spend most of my time on YouTube making vlogs and videos and on Instagram. So I would love to connect with you. And remember, be a positive force and influence within healthcare and society. It's all about God, wellness, and purpose here. Thank you for listening.